Welcome. Today we have a design review. And today's design review was submitted by Pam on Noster. She said, if you were to build this pantry, what wood combination would you recommend? Also, any tips or tricks on cabinet making is very much appreciated. Thank you for submitting your design and your questions. Looking at the picture that you sent, my first thought is it's a pretty standard cabinet project. It's going to require building a plywood case, and you can build a plywood case by, using pocket screws or using dado joints or rabbet joints, and you can cut all that with this. You can probably even do it with a skill saw with a good blade. But you're going to build a box, and your box is going to have the opening for your doors, and that will be like the opening for the doors will be, you'll build it. Let me back up. You're going to build a box, and then you're going to build a frame on the front of that box. Your frame will hold your doors and all that. And then your trim pieces along the top, you can get those from a lumber yard. You don't have to make those. You can buy those regular wood from the lumber yard. Now, it is painted, and I don't know if you're going to paint it or stain it and finish it. So that depends on which wood you want. That dictates which wood you want. In the States, for what I like to use for a painted finish is poplar. Poplar is a good wood. It's not very pretty stained. I mean, it's a green wood actually, but it's very paintable. So, yeah, I don't know if you have that where you live. I think you're somewhere in the tropics, it sounds like. So, the wood that you would want would be a nice, even, smooth, grained wood that accepts paint very well. You don't want a wood that has a grain with pores in it, like the American oak, white oak, red oak. It has pores where the grain, where the wood rings are. So what happens is those pores, if you're going to paint it, you have to fill them. Otherwise, the paint will kind of bird's eye around those pores, and they'll show up, and they'll cause an unevenness. And you'll see the grain in your painted finish. So you don't want that. You want a wood that is smooth and doesn't have pores. For the carcass, if it's painted, you can go with like an MDF. Painting MDF on the flat side is not that much of a problem. It's just you got to make sure that you either got to really seal that edge with a primer and sand it, otherwise it'll soak in paint too fast. Or you cover the raw edge with a piece of wood, like your frame, and your frame is a smooth, wood like poplar. Another thing on the shelves, I'm willing to bet that those are adjustable shelves. A good tip for drilling the dowel pin holes for adjustable shelves is to go and get pegboard from the hardware store. Now, pegboard will have a hole every inch or so, or 2 inches or so, all over. But you pick out the ones you want, spaced properly, and you can use that as a drill guide. So you would drill every, 4 inches or whatever. That's a good way of drilling those holes and getting consistency to where your shelves won't rock back and forth. If you get those dowel pins, one way or another, your shelf's going to rock. So that's a good tip. Also adding on the shelves, if they're MDF will sag real bad. So you want to either add a good frame, a good piece of wood along the front. Don't make them too long, you know, have that center divider. Or use a plywood. Plywood's probably preferable in this instance. In fact, that's my preference for wood for this project. But you could do it with an MDF. It's just, though the MDF will sag if it's a shelf and it's not supported with like a front member or a front piece along the edge. Now, if you were to do the inside stained like this, then, you know, you probably could get either plywood or MDF. The doors are a classic raised panel, it looks like. I'm assuming that's what it is. That's going to be tough to do as a beginner woodworker or even an intermediate without the right tooling. So you could have those made. Do your carcass, do your front frame, trim it all out, and then you can have a cabinet maker make doors for them. And a cabinet maker will, you know, they could drill in a cup hinge, what they call a European hinge, and then pretty much all you'd have to do is just screw it in and adjust it into your cabinet. That's probably what I would do, and it would probably be worth it to do it that way, because that's, you know, doing raised panels, it's a little bit involved, and you need a shaper or you need a table saw to do that raised panel. You can do a raised panel on a table saw. The trim, that all looks pretty basic trim, or you can find, you know, pretty much an equivalent trim. Now, the thing that I see up at the top, the crown part, that you will probably not find a single piece of trim that looks like that. That's most likely several pieces of trim that are stacked. So what you can do is you can stack trim. You can put in one layer of trim and then put in blocking and then put in another layer of trim, and that way it builds up your trim, because that looks like 2 or 3 pieces to me. Probably 3. It looks like 2 stacked and then a piece at the top. So, but yeah, it's pretty much a standard cabinetry, and you know, it just all starts with a series of boxes, really. It might help to take a look at other pieces of furniture and look at it in the aspect of boxes, you know, because most furniture is just boxes and then they apply trim to the box. But yeah, and I would also, if you're going to do a painted finish, I would paint that in an oil-based or an alkaline-based paint. Prime the surface, get you a good sandable primer, oil-based sandable primer, and you'll paint it on, and when it dries in a day or so, you go and sand it with like 220 grit sandpaper, and then you'll put on your oil-based finish, painted finish after that. It will give you a more durable finish, and it'll lay down better. Brush marks will lay down better. But that's what I would suggest. Do an oil-based finish on this. Let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, your drawers. Drawers can be done on a table saw, and they don't have to be necessarily dovetailed. You can do, I don't think, it's not called a box. You can just do like a rabbit, a dado or a rabbit. It would be a rabbet in front to where your drawer front would attach to, because that drawer front is going to be attached to a box. Again, and I said, you know, most cabinetry is just a series of boxes. So that decorative front is attached to a box that's then attached to your slides. You know, most drawers nowadays are done off of slides. So that box, you're going to have a dado in front, which is just a kind of like a little half lap joint. And then in the back, you'll have a rabbet. I might have gotten those mixed up. But you'll have like your little half lap joint and then a full groove. I can't believe it. I'm having trouble thinking which one's which, but oh well, it's been a long day. That your back will go into. So you don't necessarily have to have a dovetail cutter or whatever. Dovetails are nice, but I've never done one. So, and I've been working with wood for about 30 years, so it's just not something I've ever gone to. So let's see, is there anything else? I think that's pretty much it. If you were to do the doors on your own, you can do those doors on a table saw. You can do the bevel of the raised panel on a table saw. And you can even do the mortise and tenon and the grooves on the table saw. It's just that you're not going to get a decorative router edge. It's going to be more of a shaker kind of style, which this kind of does look like a shaker style, which is a more simpler style. So if you're simple and you get yourself or you have a table saw, then the simple door you could do on a table saw. It's very doable, even the raised panel. So those can be done too, but if you want to save yourself some grief, or if you have a little bit too steep of a learning curve on that, then have them made by a cabinet maker, and it wouldn't be too much. So, but that's my thoughts on that. It's a good project. It's a doable project for a beginner. Just take your time, think everything out. You know, buy the right tools when you need the right tools. And it's a very doable project. Just take your time, and yeah, it's very doable. So I like it. Thank you for sending it to me. If anybody else out there has a design you would like a review on, just drop me a note on Noster or a DM on Noster, or drop something in the comments below, and I'll do a design review for you. So anyway, keep building.